Everyone to September's Forex Friday. We've had a bit of a break over the summer, so it's great to be back getting going again. So what I was going to do is just to run through a brief bit of information about FOREXT, the FOREXT network. Many of you will have seen this before, but there are some hopefully new people joining us today, so hopefully that'll just be helpful. So just to talk to you a bit about the FOREXT network. Let's try and see. There we go. So the network was set up in 2019. In October. We're going for a couple of years now, obviously delayed by COVID. And we come together as 14 member forest extension organisations from around Europe, and there's a list of them. We are sort of facilitated by the European Forestry Institute, and Natasha Luvic is person who mainly leads on that. There's Natasha. So we're a good organisation of a good sort of mix of people from around Europe. We are open to new members, and the sort of things that as forest extension organisations we support our members in building capacity, really for supporting private forest owners. And there's a sort of list of the sort of things that we'd expect them to be covering. And Forest Fridays were brought around this year back in January, obviously following COVID and the loss of opportunity to meet up in person. So it's been a great opportunity just to hear what's going on around Europe. And so today we've got Petra Palatova, who will be talking about an Interreg project in the Danube region, FEM4FOREST, Forests in Women's Hands. So that's going to be really interesting. Just to highlight, on the 29th of October, next month, we've got Milan Sarvas from Slovakia, talking about some of the new support systems for private forest owners that will come around under the new CAP Rural Development Programme, which will run until 2027. And so if anyone's wants further information about the FOREXT network, then please do contact Natasha. And if you know of any organisations that would be appropriate or might be interested in joining us, then please do put them in touch with Natasha, and she can speak more about it. We've got quite an exciting year or two ahead of us, with some interesting projects that the network are acting as stakeholders for example, the European Green Deal project that the EFI have been successful in. There's a Horizon Europe project, Holy Soils, which, as it sounds, will be focusing on soils, and obviously we're putting in our own cost action, which will be interesting. So, yes, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Petra, and perhaps you could introduce where you come from, Petra, and I'll pass it over to you. So I'll stop sharing my screen. Thank you.
Thank you. I will follow just with a quick information about the organization I'm coming from. I'm working at the Department of Forestry and Wood Economics at the Faculty of Forestry and Wood Sciences at Czech University of Life Sciences in Prague. Actually, we are kind of devoting the area of topics as also both forestry and wood processing and woodworking industry. And what I'm be speaking about today is the issue of gender in forestry. Actually, it's not a project that we are the leaders in this project, but it's led by Slovenian Forestry Institute, and we are one of the project partners. But the topic now seems quite interesting from what we know, with our stakeholders that we were in touch. So just wait a second, I'll try to share my screen and then I will follow with the presentation itself. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, thank you. So the shortage we use for this project is FEM4FOREST, but the overall title is Forests in Women's Hands. Actually, as was mentioned before, it's an Interreg-Danube transnational program. And of course, as we are now facing the situation with COVID, and we have been facing it for the past actually almost 2 years, it was also affecting our project start, because it was supposed to start in June 2020. The start was postponed and we started in July 2020. However, we were not able to meet in person, so the majority of the meetings were organized online, which I found quite I'm not really very familiar with that, although we have been facing, all of us, this situation. But what is a good thing, we finally had a chance to meet in person 3 weeks ago in Slovenia. I mean, the project partner, so we had to discuss the outputs from the first 2 project periods, and I will be slowly speaking about that. About the general information, as I already mentioned, the leader is Slovenian Forestry Institute, and the main contact person is Nike Krajnc, who is the project leader. The project itself should last until the end of next year, so in December 2022. We have 14 partners from 10 countries. I'm not sure if I'm not skipping everyone, but or anyone, but it's Slovenia, it's Croatia, it's Bosnia, it's Romania, Czech Republic, Serbia, it's Germany, Austria. They are strong project partners, because in these countries, I mean Austria and Germany, they are quite experienced with the issue of gender in forestry. So they have dedicated, not strategies, but they have dedicated agencies, let's put it this way, who are dealing with this issue really in the past few years. On the top right part of the slide, you can see that there are the tasks that we are doing and we are working on. The T1 task for the project is, and one of the output I'll be also presenting, it was something like the status quo of women in forestry sector, and I found it quite interesting, because we more or less we know how it works in the neighboring countries. Like, for example, in the Czech Republic, we more or less know how the forestry and wood processing sectors look like, for example, in Slovakia, in Austria, in Germany, but there are very different views and approaches in the different countries. From my point of view, it's very different in Bosnia, it's very different in Serbia. So it's very good that we have this kind of mixture of countries that we can learn from each other. The T1 task was the first task that we were supposed to do in the very first project period, and actually it was the general information on the forestry sectors and the issue of gender in forestry. So we try to find out a common specifics and the differences. We had the same structure of information we were trying to find, and it was also interesting to know that some of the information are very easily accessible and some of the information we don't know. I will be speaking about it later on. And based on this, we also, during the T2, as there is a policy framework and innovation roadmap and action plans, we were doing some questionnaires and roundtables with women who work in forestry, and we also trying to analyze this data, and based on this we should build the training and mentoring program, and this T3 and T4 task, which is this mentoring and training program and pilot activities that should be upcoming in the next project periods, and mostly in 2022. What is interesting that, of course, because it's a gender project, then majority of the project teams are female teams, but as I can speak on behalf of my team in Prague, in the Czech Republic. We have actually 5 men and 2 women currently working on that. We had also a project manager that she was also a woman, but now we have a replacement, so we are kind of mixture that we are more male team than females, but I think that works because we have different approaches and we can discuss about that, and I think it's also good that we don't take it really only with the prospect of the women view on that sector. One of the first, let's say, big thing that happened, and it was in autumn 2020, was online conference, which actually was supposed to also be in a present form, but due to COVID, it was not possible. So there were 136 participants from 17 countries, but there was also the possibility to again then see it and stream it through Facebook and online. So we had more than 4,000 people who watched the event live, but the truth is again that majority of them was female representatives. Now I'm slowly coming back on the results. I hope I'm not mixing it up very much, but I try to make some general comment on the results for the whole project consortium, and then I will make some specific comments on the situation in the Czech Republic. The first very big output was called status report, which was published, and you can find it on the Interact websites that are dedicated to the project. I will have the link at the end of my presentation, and as I was presenting in the very first sentences, we have this information. We try to keep the information consistent for all project partners and for all project countries. So that's why I incorporated it here on the slide on the left side. You can see that the country report was dealing with the issues of forest sector in general, then about the labor market if possible, and if possible to divide the information on the labor market between not the education only, but also with this division between male and females. Then again, forest ownership, which is kind of very interesting information, because sometimes we are not able to distinguish who owns the forest, and then it is also very hard to distinguish if the owner is male or female, because the data are not available in all countries. Then we focused on forest administrations, selected companies who are connected to a forestry sector, forest focused interest groups, education and training in the field of forestry, means mostly the high schools and universities that are dealing with this issue, and also some overview of the initiatives and projects to support women in forestry. There are some, but mostly they are very general, that they are devoting the topic only about the gender in maybe labor market as such in some countries, but they are not very specific when it comes to forestry sector. In the Czech Republic, the situation is very similar, because the issue of gender is now gaining importance, but it was not very much really in that forestry sector. Now also on that slide you can see the information about women as forest owners, because one colleague of mine, he is dealing with the forest ownership situation and forest ownership fragmentation in the Czech Republic, because we have the majority of the forests in the Czech Republic are owned by state, and out of that the majority of that is managed by one of the state forestry companies, Forest of the Czech Republic. But also we have so many forest owners who own very small portion of forest land, and it makes, of course, the situation very hard for forest management, and sometimes also the forest owner is unknown. So this is a part of the research that one of my colleagues is dealing with, and we incorporated some of the outputs and also did some other research for the status report regarding the gender in forestry. So he had the information about the forest plots, and he tried to assign if the forest owner is male or if it's a female. Sometimes we couldn't find it out. That's why there is unknown gender in the table, because usually you can distinguish the gender with the identification number that is assigned according to the exact year of birth. And on that graph below, there is the division between male and females, and if the forest owner, how old is the forest owner, and if there is a female or male forest owner. So according to that fragmentation, we have really so many forest owners, small forest owners, but they have really small forest area, which is visible in that table. And there are also women forest owners who should be taken into consideration. I'm sorry, this is a bit small, but I will comment on that because as I come from the education institution, I wanted to know how many really women are studying in our studying programs. And also I concentrated on the situation in Brno, because in the Czech Republic, we have two forestry related universities. One is in Brno, and it's Mendel University in Brno, and its Faculty of Forestry and Wood Technology, and the other one is my home institution, which is Prague Czech University of Life Sciences. And as you can see, I found out how many students we have in total in bachelor, master and PhD study programs, and out of that, how much of them are women, because as we know, in the past in the Czech Republic, forestry and woodworking was mostly male-dominated sector, but as you can see, almost around 1/3 of students and also around 1/3 of alumni are women, but it very much depends on the type of the study. So there are differences between bachelor, master and PhD studies, because from the table below you can see that the share of women is the highest in PhD studies, and there is also a difference between bachelor and master study programs. Of course, we are offering studying programs in forestry and also in wood science, and also studying programs taught in English language, but the majority of the students are studying in Czech study programs. In the Czech Republic, we also have 6 forestry high schools that are listed in the table on the right hand side, and some of them are also vocational schools. Actually, when we were gathering the data, we had kind of big discussions with project partners, because sometimes it's not very understandable, or we cannot really, let's say, talking about the degree of education, because it's not very clear. I mean, the level of educations sometimes, because after leaving high schools in the Czech Republic, you can either start working directly or you can follow studying at the university. But sometimes the high schools have also the possibility that you finish the high school, but you cannot further follow studying at the university. So it's a bit complicated structure, and I don't want to go into details. But what we were trying to find out is, again, the share of women in the leadership positions, like in the headmistress or teachers, where it was possible, and how many students are studying, and how much of them the percentage is male and female, and how many of them are really graduating. Sometimes, of course, these data are not publicly available. But when it was available, it is between 20 to 30% usually. We also had to contact some of our, let's say, institutions that we are working with, and they are very important stakeholders. Of course, we have, as I mentioned before, one big state forestry company. It's Forests of the Czech Republic, but also we have another one, a state forestry company, and it's Military Forests and Estates. But as you can hear from the title, they are managing forests in a specific areas, and those that are listed in gray, we were very much in a close contact with gathering data and information, and we didn't choose the stakeholders just accidentally, but because we were trying to really cover the issue, to find out the situation in really the agencies and associations that are gathering people who are working in the forestry sector and who can be then very much important in maybe also decision making and also in pursuing the issue of gender further. Actually, the situation is like that in the managerial positions and top positions where it was possible to find this data, men are prevailing, so there are just maybe one woman or no woman at all in these top positions. And we also were trying to find out what the situation is like, why it's this way, and I will coming back to this later. In May, we had our first big output, which was a round table, and it was supposed to present our outputs from the situation of the Czech Republic and the overall situation with the project. And I was speaking about the outputs, and my colleague was speaking about the situation of forest ownership, and another colleague was speaking about certification and gender in certification. And we had 12 representatives of our participants. As you can see, we had these local public authority, national public authority, interest groups, small and medium-sized enterprises, business support organizations, and I think it was a nice place how to share the information and situation, because the participants were only women, so they were supposed to say their own experience with working in forestry sector. I mean, if they feel not offended is not the right word, but if they were struggling with something just because of the issue that they are women. Unfortunately, this also was only in the virtual space because there was no other option. The other issues were questionnaire surveys. We had two so far. The first one was aimed at female forest professionals and female forest owners. Sometimes the women that were working as someone in forestry sector were also female forest owners, but there were majority just the respondents of female forest professionals. Because we couldn't get, and this is a general information for the whole project consortium, that sometimes in some countries it is impossible to find contacts for forest owners, so they are very hard to reach. And in some countries these forest owners are people who are 60 plus, so they are not really familiar with this internet and online issues, so it's again very hard to find them and even harder to contact them. The goal was to conduct at least 150 queries and to get 50 questionnaires back, and at least 500 in total. We were a bit more successful because we gathered almost 900 answers in total. For Czech Republic it was 104. And the second questionnaire was aiming at the young females in their early career, which means those young women who are working in the forestry sector after their graduation or finishing their studies, for less than 1 year. The goal was to find out at least 30 responses per country, and in this respect I have to admit that we were not so much successful, because we at this stage the T2 questionnaire was supposed to gather the data in June, and in May-June this year, and for us it is very hard because it's state final exams at our university, and it's very hard to reach the people afterwards. So we try to make like three rounds of these questionnaires, and we still not got the 30 responses. So now in autumn we probably will need another survey again. This is a general situation and the results from the questionnaire survey. The first one that was aimed at female forest professionals and female forest owners. This is the general from all countries that, as I mentioned, we had almost 900 responses, 880, and out of that there was just only 133 forest owners, female forest owners. I have to admit that there was a structure of the questionnaire that allowed to continue the questionnaire for female forest professionals, and if the women were also female forest owners, they continued in the same questionnaires. Actually, there is the division of the countries, so the most responses were from Germany, then from Croatia, and there also was quite a lot of responses from Austria, Czech Republic, and Slovenia. And we were trying to find out really their own experience with working in forestry sector, if they are treated unequally just because they are women, if they think that why is the really the purpose of owning forest, if they are trying to incorporate someone from the family or outside the family when they are making decisions about their forest and so on. And the structure again was the same for all countries. I just put here two answers, and it's the equal treatment at work, which was quite surprising for me, because the situation in the Czech Republic sounds and seems quite seems quite fine for us, because 60% said that they think that they are equally treated at work, which is also the case in Romania. 62%, which I found quite interesting, and I think that it is also some kind of feeling that that the gender inequality is not maybe that much strong in the Czech Republic, which we also found out later on in interviews. And but the situation, as you can see, is very different in different countries, because in Austria they think that the equal treatment is only in 33%, 34% in Germany, and so. The incentives for owning the forests is on the first place, and it's in the table in the center of that slide, is the timber and fuel wood for own use. So again, the economic benefits for owning the forest and then selling the timber are prevailing, and also other things like ecosystem services connected with recreation and also nature conservation were quite highly ranked. As I said before, the second questionnaire survey, which was supposed to be for early career female forest professionals, was not very successful. So there was no statistical testing, because we got just a very small number of responses, and we will conduct it once again now. But I think that we did quite a big job trying to find the graduates and give the possibility to fill the questionnaire in, because we used our own network, we spread it through Facebook, and we also used the cooperation with one of the high school of forestry, but we were unsuccessful. But what I found out very interesting from, and it cannot be said as a general thing, but out of that responses we got, only 2 of these females had former family background dedicated to either agriculture or forestry, which I found interesting, because that means that the interest of women is maybe also now trying to be more into the forestry field, because even if they don't have any family background, they are interested in studying forestry. Then we also had guided interviews. We had 12 of them, and these took place in April and in May. I just made a small table about the responses. Actually, we had 12 of them. It was again only for females. As of the place of residence, you are probably not familiar with that, but I can say that we had equal distribution of the place of residence for the whole country. As you can see, we had mostly younger interviewees. It's in the third column, it's the age, and then also they started in forestry in the almost just a few past years, so it's 2020 for 3 or 4 cases, 2019, which I found also interesting, because it means that in the previous years the number of women who are really into the field of forestry is growing, and they are working on different positions like rangers, foresters, in administration, but also in silviculture operations. And we also had to ask them if they are forest owners, and it was just in 3 cases, but it was as again, when I'm coming back to the beginning of my speech, they own very small plot of forest area. I put also here 3 pictures that were, because we had of course a structure of that interview to keep it consistent again for all the countries, and we had 3 pictures at the end of the not the questionnaire, but at that structure of the interview, and the respondent should say which picture they like the most, which they think it's representing the women at most, if it's the first one, the second one, or the third one. And it was very interesting that some of the women could not choose because they thought that it is good that women can make any position in forestry. And also sometimes we try to connect their responses to the statements in that green table, if they think that the representation of women in the forest sector is satisfactory, if they think that it is, when you say forestry, then it means that there is male connotated sector, if they think that women have different views on the work of forestry and what they can bring to the forestry sector, and so on. So it was quite interesting. Here are some key insights from these guided interviews. On the left-hand side, there is the key insight from the interviews with forest professionals, because even they think that the forest sector is, of course, physically and also demanding work. They think that women belong to the sector, but in general, in the Czech Republic, they think that women belong to the field of forestry, but they don't think that the gender issue, I mean the inequality, is so big that there is no good path to say that there should be 50-50 equal establishment, that 50% of men and 50% of women. But it's good that we have women also in forestry, and they are great for working where should be a precise work, and when they cope with people and they can take care of the nature. And if they somehow make advice what should be done better so far for better integration or for better success of women in forestry, they should really utilize their strong skills, and they should build and improve their soft skills, and they have to be educated. With forest owners, we found out that every woman who owns forest thinks that the work is very much demanding, it's very much time consuming, and it is hard to do it on their own. So usually it's just a part of, let's say, family tradition, or someone from the family is helping them. And they think that because of the demanding work, timely consuming work, women can work also on managerial positions, but they have to also think and balance this family and work life, which is quite true. Based on these interviews, we had 3 role models of women who are successful in their careers, and we had again some structure of information we put here. And I choose one of them. It's Vladimíra. Actually, she has education in forestry. She's been working in forestry for almost 20 years, and she was working in this big state forestry company at military forests and estates, and later on in the other state forestry company, Forests of the Czech Republic. And she's dealing with the issue of finances in forestry. And the other one we chose was the headmistress of one of the high forestry school in Žlutice, and the third one was women who is working in in an enterprise forest of the city of Brno, which is actually the second largest city in the Czech Republic, and she's doing their marketing and also technical issues. And each of them has education in forestry. They have been working in forestry from 10 to 25 years, and they said they didn't have really negative experiences just because of that fact that they are women. So they found out quite equally treated in forestry, but they made some key messages for women in forestry, and they said it's good to really raise the issue of gender in forestry, because it's good to place forestry and connect it with sustainability and also economy, and it should be spread out, not to think that forestry is only male sector, and it should be it should start from primary and high schools, and they think that every woman can work in forestry if she wants to, but of course there should be no like strict rules, 50% to 50%. Actually, the outputs of the project are slowly presented, and they are, as we are coming to the deadlines and these tasks and deliverables, they are presented on that Interact Danube website. And the first big output was this report on current situation and position of women in forestry in Danube region, which I found really interesting because, as I said, there is the same structure of information that was investigated in every single country we have in this project consortium. So it's very interesting if you want to find out something about some country, let's say Romania, Bosnia, or Czech Republic. We have also a communication manager, and she's quite active also with LinkedIn and Facebook posts and so on. And in case you find something from this interesting, if you further have some question, you can directly contact me, because I'm also the let's say the representative of the project partner for the Czech Republic, so there's also a contact for me. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Petra. That was really interesting, and I think it really goes to show how there's real opportunities in forestry and related subjects for women. And certainly, I think historically, we certainly haven't seen enough women in forestry. But I think with all the interest in climate change and the benefits that forestry can do for that, I think it's really raised the game, and I think the opportunities are growing. So let's hope that it'll just continue to get better for women. But has anyone got any questions? Not getting. I mean, just one question from me actually. Just thinking, how have you found? What are the sort of the key things that an organisation might be able to do to look to encourage more women into forestry?
We have been discussing this issue a lot, because, as I mentioned, we have been also in close contact with some stakeholders, and the truth is that majority of them in the management are men. And we found out that maybe there should be the issue of, for example, home office things for people who are working in administration, or the possibility of kind of kindergarten or something, because we are still on that issue that women have less space for building a career if they want to have family. That's true, and we don't. I think that it's necessary to have some kind of certainty that, for example, they don't have to think about the kids when they are at work or something. So these kind of maybe shorter working times, home offices, and so on. But interesting information was also the one from our partner, one of the role models, and she said that maybe also a better description of job positions will be helpful, because sometimes when you have when you want to have a new job, there's the position, and you cannot really you cannot really think about what you will be doing there. So sometimes better descriptions and also the possibilities of what the employer has for their employees will be beneficial, I think. And we will have this training and mentoring program. So I think we will also discuss it more again. And I think the issue is also that women are representing themselves, like they think that they should do more just because they are women and they don't want to show that they don't know something. I think that men can show it more easily because no one will say you don't know it because you are man. But when you are women, it's kind of, you don't belong there because it's kind of I think some internal factors also that we should maybe present ourselves more. I would say that.
Yeah, so that's around women having more confidence.
Yes.
In themselves, yes. And
yes.
They certainly should. And also perhaps COVID has got one silver lining in that people may go to work more from home and be more flexible about how they work in future. So possibly there's some options there. We've got a couple of questions now. So Nuala.
Very interesting presentation, and thank you very much for that. A question in relation to, I understand a lot of what you said there was in relation to people who had already committed to forestry in one way or another, but have you looked in any way at the decision to take to study forestry at third level, or I mean, for women in particular? I mean, here in Ireland, we have problems getting anybody, male or female, but females in particular, to actually do courses in forestry. Is there anything you can help us with in relation to that from your studies?
That's a good question. Well, I think that I'm not able to answer you now because we have been in a process of several things, like we have, for example, for PhD studies, we don't have the trouble that we don't have applications. We have applications both from males and women, but the trouble is that they sometimes don't have time to finish the studies. The trouble is that they start working and then they have time to do research, but it does not depend on the gender, I would say. And the other thing is that we at the faculty, I think that they are trying to promote the, let's say, what you can do after you graduate. Because sometimes I found out that even men, but also women, they when they are deciding what they will do after the high school, they are just trying to get somewhere. To some university, but they are not really keen on the field of study, and sometimes they cannot really imagine what they will do afterwards. So I think that also to connect what you can do afterwards and maybe to promote it more, that you can do it, will be helpful.
Thank you for that.
Natasha, you've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you very much, Petra, for this really excellent presentation and really interesting data that you showed on doing this research. And I think it's really timely and really applicable in all over Europe and the world, and especially since now the Commission is requiring in the Horizon Europe program an answer from each of the organizations that is submitting or being part of a consortium of any proposal, to give a statement if they have a gender equality plan in place in their organization. So basically, in the future, it should be like a requirement for every organization to have a gender equality plan, how they're addressing this within their organizations and in which way they are trying to bridge the gap or solve these issues. And also, most importantly, maybe see it also from the perspective of the research. I don't know, you have been seeing it mostly from the forestry perspective and the perspective of private forest owners, but maybe it will be interesting to see it on a more general level from the research perspective.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, thank you, Natasha. I think it's also like when we are discussing also the issue at our faculty, we have like less than 20% of women who are in this like leading positions, are deans or vice deans and so on. And I think that it's not good really to say, okay, so since 2022 you should have at least 25% because you should increase that. But I think it's good to initiate discussion and the conversation like that they should do it, because I think that sometimes really women are underrepresented themselves and they are just, okay, so it's a male position, I'm not doing that. Just show them that they can work at that position. And I think also this comes hand in hand in that in the upcoming years we will have more women in certain positions, not just managerial, but also at the departments and so on.
Great, thanks. I see that John Burgess has asked a question in the chat. John, do you want to ask it in person?
Thank you, Mark. Yes, great presentation, Petra. I was just interested to know if the countries that had higher levels of female engagement with forestry, if that was traditional or whether there's been an increase very recently.
The biggest interest is in Austria and Germany. They have even for example, for forest owners, they have even initiatives that they are dealing with just female forest owners. And I think that they mentioned they've been doing it for maybe past 15 years or so. So there is a tradition, not really long one, but they started quite early before this gender issue was, let's say, a popular topic in this overall European speech. So Germany and Austria are like the most, let's say, advanced in this. Hopefully this was the answer what you were asking for.
Yes, thank you. Just if there was any more information, but no, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Great, thanks, John. And I noticed one of my colleagues, Garin, has made a comment that when he was at university at Bangor in North Wales, which was the main sort of UK forestry university nowadays, there's only one woman in his course back 20 or 30 years ago, yeah. whereas now this year is 30%. So certainly things are definitely improving, even
Yeah, that's the same, because, well, I would say that I have several colleagues and they are, of course, they have all background in forestry and they graduated like 15 to 20 years ago. And they said that then when they were studying high schools, because they were studying forestry high schools, it was very common that there was no women at all in their study circle, or how to put it. And we can see that it's increasing from the data. Yeah, even for high schools and even for universities. I think it started at universities, but now it's slowly improving also in the forestry high schools.
Yes, I think it's the education sector that needs to be alerted, and hopefully with the renewed interest in the environment through climate change emergencies and biodiversity emergencies, that hopefully it'll give a bit of a boost to that interest. But it is a matter of putting funding into schools and colleges to make sure that forestry actually does get heard. So have we got any more questions? No. Okay, so thank you very much, Petra. That's been an excellent talk. It's a really interesting project, and certainly something which I hope the learning from it can be taken forward, and certainly we want to see many more women in forestry. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much for listening. If you will have any further question, you can directly ask me, or you can find the information also, some of them on the website. So thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. So thank you, everyone. And just to remind you that on the 29th of October, we've got the next Forest Friday, where Milan Saravas from Slovakia will be talking about their new support systems for forest owners. So please do tune in then. Well, thank you very much, and see you all soon. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.